You're tuned in to RX Radio.
Good. Yeah, we're back.
We're back. We're here. Eh,
Jeez. Holy.
I know. I'm not even going to say that we've been good for X amount of times because we figured this out like one or two times where it's worked smoothly, and we're still a work in progress. We're like 620 something episodes in at this point.
I mean, I think it goes to show you, like, we've talked about the podcast statistics of like there's X number of millions of podcasts in the world, but only X percent make it past the first like 10 episodes. And I get it. Like
Yeah.
the hardware and the infrastructure around, especially remote podcasting, is endlessly frustrating. Where if you're someone who is attached to the end result of this, which I don't even know what the end result is, you're going to get pretty demystified pretty quickly in the podcast space. So you have to be dumb enough to keep going.
That's one thing that we got working for us. We're dumb enough to keep running through walls.
Amen to that. Well, welcome back. This is episode 7 million of RX Radio. Brought to you by prescript.com. If you're looking to get into the L1, registration is currently closed. Waitlist is up. It's the only discount we offer is if you put your name on the newsletter list or on the wait list. So registration is open. Course goes up for sale before the end of the year. So keep an eye on your inbox for that. And like I said, it's the only discount you get. PSL1, 16 weeks, 4 lectures a week, 7 labs, plus lecture and collective access, technique lab, emerging ideas, lecture series, access to the Discord 24/7 to the coaching network we have across the world. I think we're in 83 countries, which is wild.
It's crazy.
I don't know if I could name 83 countries off the top of my head.
No.
So yeah, that goes up before the end of the year. If you guys want to jump in the first semester of the new year, kick it off right. PSL1 will be going live. So get your name on the registration and we will see you in class early next year. Now, we're going to jump right into it. GPP training.
Yeah.
Kills me.
Yeah. It kills me when it's the singular focus of training, right? Like GPP makes sense to me in the grand scheme of training. This is a phase that we'll go through to get you prepared to do more specialized things. But people just think that GPP is like, there's certain people that think GPP is like, this is where I want to be in training. I want to be generally mediocre all the way around and not really good at anything.
I'm going to change. I'm going to add something to my initial comment.
Please.
Because there's two ways to look at this. And I think we're looking at it from each of those two ways. I look at what kills me with GPP is when coaches talk about GPP training for their clients as the be all end all. And it's usually coaches that are antithetical or juxtaposed to any sort of specification, any sort of movement modification, any sort of personalization, anything that may suggest that one person is meaningfully different from another. So there's a brand of coaching that's very almost like anti-coaching. And it's very odd to me. It's like an angsty sort of juvenile approach to looking at our industry and what we do. And it's really just this broad spec approach. And I think it's really disrespectful to the profession when coaches get on a GPP bandwagon. Because if I'm hiring a coach or a trainer or even a clinician for that matter, the word general should go out the fucking window. Like when I go get my suits made, I'm not buying off the peg, right? Like if someone goes, I'm a 52 long, which I don't know, I don't think that's the case or whatever. I'm not. I'm not whatever generic fucking sizing chart your boy at Macy's is. I'm not that, and that's not what I'm paying for, right? I better have fucking 50 measurements while I stand on that little box and someone specs me out for a suit that fits. You're the tailor of someone's exercise programming if someone's paying you for it. It's like the GPP coaching world goes out there and is trying to sell a bespoke service with off the peg products. And it's like, what is your sales angle here? Right? Like that nothing fits you. Like and it's, what makes it worse and what I find more offensive is the air of superiority that GPP profits have against those who actually do their job. That's what gets me. There's like, if I see that fucking Winnie the Pooh with a monocle fucking meme one more time, I'm gonna put someone's head through a wall because they try and be lazy and sophisticated at the same time. It's like, sorry, man, like you have to actually care about your job enough to be good at it. You can't not care and say that that's you being good at your job. So that's when I talk about GPP programming, I see where, let's say you're scrolling through Facebook ads and you're in your mid to late 30s and you're out of shape and you see someone puts up and you know enough and you watch enough YouTube fitness videos to be like, oh, I've heard this word before, GPP. I don't have a routine. I'm going to buy this program. Sure. Right. Like I'm okay with that. What I don't like, the angle I have like this massive objection to, is the professional who's a coach or a trainer or a clinician that uses GPP from a high horse and
Mhm.
tries to look down on those that like dare consider someone's lifestyle or someone's previous history and make changes that will hopefully expedite this person's progress, which is the whole point of your job, is to expedite progress. So that's where I have a big axe to grind, because, and maybe this is a good bifurcation in the conversation where we look at it, we go, okay, GPP from the eyes of someone who's just taking on fitness unsupervised versus GPP from the eyes of a trainer who's using this type of programming schematic philosophy, whatever you want to call it, in the way that they train their clients.
I see. All right. So I'm going to make some statements here, and I want you to let me know if this fits within who you are describing as these people that you have an axe to grind with.
Okay. You're gonna, all right, can I predict what's about to happen? You're gonna use such pinpoint. Okay, just go. I know what's gonna happen. Go ahead.
All right. We shouldn't be using straps because when you need to pick up your groceries to load them into the car, you're not going to have straps.
Yeah, that's in there. That's in there.
Okay. Okay. Squat shoes are useless because you're not going to build the foot strength you need to be able to do a squat pattern.
Yeah, we're 2 for 2. We're 2 for 2. That's good. You're
Okay.
across the board.
I think I got one more that kind of fits in here. We shouldn't be using machines because that's not how your body actually moves.
Yeah, I would add one more to that is you probably use the word primal in there somewhere, and you
Okay.
really don't think anything exists out of push, pull, lunge, squat, and hinge.
Gotcha.
That kind of rounds out the whole philosophy.
All right. Take off your shoes and get on the ground, bitch.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's in there. And look, I think Jesus Christ. 50 shades of fucking gray over here. What the hell is going on? I think there's been a mutation to it. And the mutation really is, it's just bad bodybuilding with no diet. That's essentially what GPP training has become,
Interesting.
is really poor Charles Glassian like muscular development bodybuilding splits for people with no strength or appreciable muscle mass or really any general skill in the gym whatsoever, uh, that don't want to focus on their diet or nutrition, hydration or sleep, but want to work out. So someone kind of puts together, maybe they'll go as far as an upper body, lower body split, maybe push pull legs. So it's really just kind of bad bodybuilding with minimal oversight and no drugs. That's where like the
Gotcha.
GPP zealot has sort of landed. Um, and it's frustrating because it's devaluing the product and service that we're supposed to be providing, which is customized. Now, look, at a certain point, most of us, hopefully, God willing, we have 2 arms and 2 legs. Some people don't, and, that's gonna require some level of customization and expertise. So, yes, are we more alike than we are different? Sure. My thing from a professional perspective is what it takes to tailor an exercise prescription for a client, patient, or athlete is so easy. We're not building 4-stage rockets over here, right? Like, oh, your shoulders are a little wider. I'm going to attach these 2 D handles onto a camber bar, right? I don't need an acetylene torch. I don't need a soldering iron or a welder. I don't need a screwdriver or a miter saw. I don't need a belt saw or a sander. I just need to have opposable thumbs, and I could probably do it without. I could probably do it with my fucking feet and take 2 D handles and put that on and say, hey, this is going to be the pullover that you do. And then some GPP asshole with like 12-inch arms goes, you're overcomplicating. And I was like, what? In what universe do you have Velcro shoes, sir? Did you take the bus here? Like, does someone cut up your hot dogs for you? Like, what do you mean this is overcomplicating it? Like, are you fucking stupid? Like, if that's overcomplicating it, man, like, I hope you have a helper that wipes the drool from your fucking mouth. Like, and it's hilarious to see people, again, they try and take a high horse in our profession and they look down on these like, oh man, training's not that complicated. It's like, really? Who are you training? Amoebas? Tapeworms? Single-celled organisms? Human beings are probably one of the most other than the expanse of the cosmos. The human brain is probably the most misunderstood thing in the universe. And you're sitting there, and all I'm trying to do is like, I don't know, man, the guy's elbow hurts when he does it this way and not the other way. So I'm just going to do it the not hurt way. And you're sitting there fucking browbeating me, looking down your fucking big stupid nose, saying that I'm overcomplicating. It's like, have a modicum of respect of the complexity of the system that you're working with. And then that's what really grinds my gears. It's just like this twofold laziness and superiority that comes from prophets and zealots of general preparation training, because there should be nothing. And we talked about this before, like, obviously we're 600 episodes in a fitness podcast. We've talked about everything before.
There's
But
nothing more.
in this week's version of it, when I think of your CrossFit career, I learned a lot about programming from watching you prepare for your competitions. And to me, it was exercise programming in almost like in a vacuum of like, oh, this is very much a microcosm of what programming is at scale. You have a bunch of different qualities and trainable properties that are going to be on display on a certain day for a certain time. And you have this sort of phasic potentiation of things that you're good at and distances away from a competition versus things that you're bad at that are further away, that require more practice. And, you said a word earlier that really resonated with me when I have this thought or I'm having conversations around GPP, which is mediocrity. right? Like when you were competing in CrossFit, you had a bunch of different things you had to do. And you understand that like to be the best is to be better than mediocre at all of them. You don't have to be the best at all of them, but you have to be better than mediocre, right? Like, you may not be, what were your Olympic weightlifting was a strong point. Yeah. Where was gymnastics in your repertoire?
Uh,
How were you on the
yeah,
gymnastics side?
for me, gymnastics were at the top, and then Olympic lifting, and then like cardio conditioning. I was very weak comparatively.
Compared to now.
Compared to now, and kind of compared to the top of the field, not the middle, not the average. Like I was stronger than most. I was weaker than the strongest, though.
So I guess my thing to kind of round this out is general. There's no such thing as general in our field, right? Because general, and I understand what people mean, but your job is to be specific, and it's to be just specific to the goals that people have and the impediments that stand in their way from achieving them.
Yes.
And that's where general physical preparedness to me just kind of goes out the window, because there's specific reasons why people aren't generally prepared. And those specific reasons require specific interventions. But we're not going to reach those specific interventions by going through general exercise prescription.
Yes. I love it. And I want to get a little clarity there, because I want to be able to really talk shit on the same population as you. I want to be on the same page as we get into this, because there's been like an arc around GPP in training. And I think for me, it became most prevalent through CrossFit. And I think that's kind of waved its way out. And now it is like the gen pop trainer, the people that is their kind of their clientele. That's the type of person that they're marketing towards. And they'll make a distinction about how you train just the average person versus an athlete or someone that wants to get stronger or lose weight and X, Y, and Z. And that's where it kind of raises a red flag for me, because whenever we're thinking about programming for a specific person, you say this all the time, the metric that we're looking for is increased performance, right? And our goal at the end of the day is to increase their performance in a realm that is relevant to them. And that's never something general, right? If someone wants to be able to walk up the stairs or carry their groceries from their car, that's a very specific reason. Versus if they want to run faster in the 40-yard dash, or they want to increase their clean and jerk or their back squat. Like these are all very specific intentions. And generalized training does belong in the program for everyone at some point. But where this makes the most sense to me, and where this like traditionally the word GPP, or general physical preparedness, the kind of textbook definition of this comes from probably the most impactful book I've ever read around training. I think it's Tudor Bompa and Gregory Half wrote the book Periodization, which is like it explains in very much detail like periodization for sport, the specific intention of each of the phases, and it lays it out in a very organized way that makes sense. And another word that you use a lot of really good words in that rant, was phase potentiation, right? And there's an idea around programming that as you go through a programming cycle, and this can, as it's defined in Periodization, the book, this can be weeks, months, year, or years, like talking about an Olympian, like preparing for the Olympics in a quad fashion, like 4-year blocks. The idea is that whatever that timeline is, there should be specific phases laid out across that timeline that amplify their performance in that amount of time. And there should be specific intentions around each of those phases, which you want them to maximize specific adaptations so that they will now have a solid foundation that they can build upon for the next phase. And as this goes, we're starting really broad in terms of intentions, in terms of adaptations, in terms of energy systems, and then we're making that we're building a pyramid. We're building that to a peak, quite literally and metaphorically as well, of this is what performance looks like for this person at this time. Now, as it's defined through a traditional periodization model, the phases that kind of lead into one another, say post-season, you get an athlete, or day one, you get a new client with very general goals. There's a phase it's called a restitution phase, which is basically where you're restoring general qualities to that person, things like range of motion, stability, cardiovascular capacity, specific energy systems. So they have a baseline level of capacity that doesn't have any sort of gaps or holes in their abilities. And then on top of that, the next phase is GPP, general physical preparedness, which is where you are now increasing their ability to move in all planes of movement, to produce force through range of motion, things like this. And it is very non-specialized by definition, but at the same time, it is specific to the person that's in front of you, like you mentioned. And that's the other side of this that I think is really notable, is that, okay, we're looking to create a baseline that's very flat. We want to kind of flatten out any holes they have in their performance, or any, not necessarily that we want to flatten out any peaks, but we want to be mindful of where they're performing well and where they're performing poorly. That's where the specialization comes in. And that's where, if you have just a general client, this is assessment. We need to learn exactly what their capacities are in all domains so that we can see where they're lacking. And GPP is a specific phase meant to take any of those lacks of performance and raise that back to baseline. So it's something that is meant to create, I'll say, a normal capacity in all domains, so that now, as we move on to the next phase, which is typically building strength, after strength, we'll build power. After power, we'll move into sport-specific performance. And that is a periodization model. GPP is an important phase within this, but it is exactly that. It's a specific phase where we're focusing on specific intentions for a specific individual with a specific end goal, right? So yes, we can look at this as a general phase where we're filling gaps, but that's going to look different for every single individual in front of you because of the way that they present to you and their end goal, right? None of this matters if we don't have an end goal. And that's the thing about, these general population trainers. Even if that's your clientele and you're working with a very generalized population, you need to have goals for them. Either they come to you with specific goals, or you project specific goals on them. And it has to be that way, or else it turns into the sessions where you're just counting reps, how's the dog doing, whatever, like meaningless conversation. And those are the mind numbing sessions that every trainer has, that every trainer hates. And they keep wondering why they get that clientele. It's because you're that type of trainer. You're attracting that with the way that you're selling the programming that you're doing. You have to understand that, okay, if this person doesn't have goals, I need to, if they don't explicitly have goals that they tell me this is what I want to do, I need to interpret what they're saying, and I need to project a goal back on them, because this doesn't go anywhere without that. Is we need to figure out something that we're working towards, or else just go in and do some leg machines on leg day, do some upper body machines on an upper body, and then leave. Like, it's move your joints, whatever, I don't care. Which is essentially what I think it sounds like the GPP trainer that you're talking about. Like, that's them. It's like the people that they're not working towards increasing performance in any specific domain. So they just get caught in this wash and repeat. Like, this is a GPP program. We're going to do this forever.
Yeah, and that's where GPP training is being sort of proselytized. And this is what I hate is the evangelizing of this type of training with the denigration of specificity in phases that may bookend or should bookend this type of training. So, like, to me, anything that fits within a periodization model is specific.
Yeah.
So even GPP
Absolutely.
is specific within a goal because, as you said, it's bookended by what is the raw materials that this person is coming to me with out of something looking like sort of a restitution phase, and what are we working towards based off the goals that we have, right? Like I've had clients very, very thin that need to put on weight, and I've had clients that are fuck off fat that need to lose a shit ton of weight. Right.
Yeah.
So these phases and where they get placed and the duration of them is very much, and this is a big component. And this is where a lot of coaches miss. And I've seen this from the beginning of my career right through. And I don't think it'll ever get fully eradicated. But this idea of time being the thing that dictates the duration of a training phase within a periodization cycle. Now, you mentioned something interesting about sports specific training all the way out to a quadrennial calendar of an Olympic Games, where we have to deal with world championships on an annual basis and then sort of a big show, 4 years on an Olympic cycle. That type of programming, right, kind of has micro goals within the bigger picture of the goal, right? But when you have a general population client that doesn't have that goal orientation, you're kind of, you're playing tennis without the net. Everything kind of works and you can celebrate these little wins, but it's like the second you have punctuated this periodization with a meaningful assessment, it sort of changes your responsibility to the client. It gives you a responsibility to the client because it gives you a very clear snapshot of where they should be, right? And I think understanding where they should be is a reflection of your understanding of where they are to start. And your periodization is basically the value that you provide in bridging that delta. Because I've had it where someone is sort of severely overweight. The restitution phase is primarily cardiovascular in nature.
Yeah.
That like we can't actually push any sort of meaningful stimulus in training. We can't have access to meaningful range of motion because everything leaves you out of breath. Right. So a restitution phase could be something that I've had clients where I've told them to not come to the gym. And let's look, I'm going to save you because I'm going to save you a couple $1,000. And this is early in my career where it's like, I want you to walk to the gym every single day. I've done this before. I want you to walk to the gym every single day. I knew where they lived. They lived in Forest Glade. It was probably like, I don't know, it's a 20, 30-minute walk each way. So you get an hour walk in. And I'm like, if you walk to the gym every day, 5 days a week, and you come find me, I'll tell the people at front desk, let you in, come upstairs, come find me, and then walk back. I will train you for your first 6 months for free. And I fucker did it. And okay,
That's
good.
great.
And now I can work with you, right? Now you have a base of, because it's like, okay, what's the next phase that we're going into? What's the bottleneck? Because you outlined it perfectly. We're going to go into strength and then power. Because fuck if you're training power with no strength, right? And it's the same thing. So it's the same thing with cardiovascular. So the problem is, right? Someone may come in, say someone comes in really powerful, they have fucking no range of motion, right? Or someone comes in powerful, they have no gas tank, right? Or someone comes in with a big gas tank and no strength, right? Like an endurance runner, marathon runner, something like that. It's like how you move these pieces around is going to be directly indicated by what they're coming in with. Like, what are the raw materials that you're coming in with that are going to dictate how you and where you put these phases? But the thing that I was sort of started off on this rant is it's performance mile markers that switch phases. It's not time.
Yes.
Right? The quadrennial cycle of an Olympic athlete, sure, you have to be ready for this time. And if not, you're going anyways. But when you have the freedom of no deadline, which would be kind of the freedom that comes with a client with no goal, you can make much more concerted decisions on when you switch these phases of training. And they should be punctuated by performance mile markers, not mile markers on the calendar. Right? This isn't an advent calendar of training. It's like, well, I open this day, we have to do this. It's like, no. Right? And I see that, 4 to 6 weeks deload, switch it. Like, why? Are they still progressing? Right? Are they still picking up easy dubs? Like if I'm going in and this person's increasing, a meaningful jump in volume and intensity, or a meaningful amount of output by wattage on a bike, or we could do extra work in the cardiovascular space. And I'm just gonna be like, all right, it's been time's up. Now we're gonna go do this thing. It's like, this thing, I have to do minimal effort to get progress. I haven't stalled or plateaued, but I look at my calendar and I go, it's this o'clock, and now we're gonna switch. Like, no. Let performance dictate when you decide to switch gears, right? Because then you're going to introduce a novelty stimulus. You're going to introduce the next phase in that phasic potentiation model. So it's something that, like, GPP is just GPP. It starts when you start giving them money and it ends when you die. Like that, what type of service is that? You know what I mean? It's like, it's the fuck, you know what GPP is? It's the fucking rub and tug of exercise, right? Like, and they're like, it's literally what it is. It's like, you may as well just go to the Korean joint down the block. Like, it's, your money is better spent, because at the end of the day, they're both just jerking off. Like, that's
Yeah.
what they're doing, right?
Take off your shoes and get
man,
on the
fuck.
floor, bitch.
I knew that was gonna make a comeback.
Full circle.
Oh man, this podcast is art. But it's like, and look, you said, and you kind of alluded to something early, that if we haven't resonated in some technical sense with people who are zealots for GPP, I don't know how you show up to work every day and ask someone about their fucking dog. I love dogs. I'm going to go to a dog festival in Nantucket in November next year. I'm going to go to Kathmandu, Nepal. Sorry, not Nantucket. That's fucking in Kathmandu in Nepal. That's how much I love dogs, for a festival where they worship dogs. But if I had to listen to someone talk about their fucking dog every day, but I'd blow my brains out if it's like, how's Fluffy in the last 16 hours since I've seen you last? Right? Like, you want to, and this is something that I think at the core of the issue, or the exception that I take with just the audacity of these skinny fuckers to try and oversimplify training human beings, is, you show me someone that leans on GPP as a style of training, I'll show you someone who doesn't understand the health benefits and importance of motor learning over training.
Wow.
Straight out. That's just what it is. Right? Like, train an old person and just have them do the same shit, and just watch the plasticity just turn to stone like a troll when the sun comes up. It's like, dude, you gotta keep it, interesting. And we're not juggling fucking Bosu balls here, but there's a deliberate and premeditated progression that requires some focus or orientation on the introduction and learning of new skills. Right? Like, you get good at getting in shape. So that's kind of my whole thing. And that's where it really falls off. And that's unfortunately where I see GPP being used the most, is in that population that needs that plastic, ever-changing, evolving, progressing, thought out periodization model that really is built around motor learning, not, just arbitrarily getting stronger at bicep curls on like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. And to your point, I think a property that you should be working on in GPP training is coordination, right? There's going to be a base level of coordination that is something, and we want to progress upon that, right? We want someone to become more coordinated. Now, if we're trying to progress coordination, the progression for coordination is complexity, right? So as we progress over time, exercises need to become more complex, right? So it's going to be something that inherently has to become more specialized the longer that we do this. And to your other point, the idea that if we don't have an athlete and we have someone with very general goals that wants to do very general training, they're going to be able to get a lot out of every single progression, right? So if we keep them in a phase where we're working on the coordination of a split squat, I'm going to have them split squat probably once a week, maybe slightly more often, maybe slightly less depending on their frequency. But if I'm doing split squats once a week, they might be able to blow that progression out. We might be able to blow out this phase of GPP 8, 12, 16 weeks or more. But at a certain point, they're going to get to a point where their coordination has leveled out. They have the coordination to be able to do this, but they're no longer able to adapt to a split squat once a week because the other areas in which they need to build capacity aren't being challenged to the degree that they need to be challenged to progress. So we need to put in something that is either more complex or some level of variation in there for them to continue to have progress. So if we're looking at someone that's training in a GPP phase, there needs to be a complexity progression somewhere along the lines there, which is going to necessitate some degree of specificity, right? If that person's not ready for a walking lunge yet, then we have to figure out a variation that is specific to them that will continue to allow them to have progress at a reasonable rate, right? Because we're not just going to say, all right, you get to do split squats with a 35-pound dumbbell, and we're just going to do this forever because this is all that you need to do generally to be physically prepared. And then kind of another point that parallels that is the idea that as we go through these phases, you are not going to be maximally effective training all qualities at once, right? Like you mentioned, an endurance runner needs more strength, right? Someone that's very powerful but doesn't have range of motion, they're eventually going to either hurt themselves or reach a bottleneck in training, best case scenario, because of that lack of range of motion, right? So we can't do power cleans predominantly or just kind of work within their strengths and progress in the other areas that they need to. So there's going to be a point at which the quality that we're training, we're going to have slowed progress in that. And if we have competing qualities alongside of that, then that's actually going to take away from their progression in all qualities, not just the one that we're trying to progress. So if I have someone that needs to improve their endurance, I need to pull back on strength and power work so we can improve their endurance versus someone that has endurance, but they don't have strength or power. I need to tip those scales towards strength so I can convert that to power later down the line, because the more endurance training we're going to do, that's going to directly conflict with their top end strength. So there has to be kind of a tipping of these scales as we're training someone over a broad horizon. People that train, this kind of figurative GPP nerd avatar, you're probably losing clients before you get to the point where you have to do these things. But the idea is that for you to maximize a specific adaptation, you need to pull back in other areas to truly maximize that adaptation. And then from there, once you maximize that adaptation, progress is going to slow. So now you can shift back towards other adaptations where you now have a lot of runway to make progression because you were not focusing on this for X amount of time. And that in itself, it periodizes your training because you have to shift goals to focus on specific adaptations through different time horizons.
I think so. You brought up something that a lot of people don't consider. And I think it's something that's part and parcel of the people who adapt a GPP model of training in perpetuity. And the idea that switching phases isn't like drop shifting in a manual transmission, right? Like it's not like a now I'm in second gear, now I'm in fifth gear, now I'm in second gear. It's subtle, right? It's the introduction, it's the inclusion and exclusion, the promotion and demotion, moving exercises through the rotation, phasing out. The people who hear the word phase and they go, oh, it's Monday of a new phase and 8 new exercises and skills that I don't know how to do. And I need to learn all of them. And I just got good at the other ones where I was actually just starting to understand the skill and adapt. And it seems like a lot of people who try sort of phasic periodization, they start there. They don't know how to transition phases properly. They finally throw their hands in the air and go, fuck it. And then they just do bad bodybuilding with no diet forever. And it works better than getting a little bit good at a couple of the exercises that you got prescribed to you 2 to 3 weeks ago, making minor progressions in efficiency and having some stimulus to respond to. And then it's time to switch programs again. And it's like, okay, and like you kind of said that, hey, that client probably is not going to stay with that trainer long enough to get results. And that trainer is not staying with a program long enough or a phase long enough to get results. So there's a lot of people I find who end up banging the GPP drum off into the sunset, do it because they didn't really understand, not necessarily periodization from the blocks themselves and having an intent and focus and understanding the exercise that actually stimulates the necessary response for the adaptation that would signify the efficacy of that exercise in that program, it's really gets lost in the transition. How people transition in and out of phases of periodization, that's where I watch people fucking crumble because they panic. They panic. They put some fucking thing on the calendar, on their little training advent calendar. Holidays are coming. And that day hit and their client goes, knock, knock, knock. Where's my power program? And next thing you know, it's just like fucking box jumps and trap bar cleans and fucking, I don't know what burpees, which aren't really our power exercises at all. But like you panic. You fucked it, dog. You fucked it. And it's in the transition. That's where I lose people in periodization models when you start to teach this stuff. And it's like, okay, we hit week 6 of a hypertrophy phase. Calories are staying the same, mirrors changing, but the weights, what do? Well, we hit week 6. So we have to switch into like a strength phase. So we're gonna start like, no, you keep going. You're on a wave, brother. Ride it. Ride the wave, dude. He's still putting on muscle. We're recomping at the same calories. We don't need to adjust food or nutrition or anything or training. And he's still great. Visuals look awesome, man. Yeah, we're gonna keep this up in the next week. We'll reevaluate. Okay, cool. All right, things are starting to slow down. I'll tell you what, this is where we're gonna push this down the order. I'm gonna reintroduce this. We're gonna learn this. We're spend a couple weeks, and I put in a fucking hinge, a dumbbell RDL, and that's gonna be the thing. And now we're slowly building into strength. That dumbbell RDL maybe turns into a barbell over the course of a couple weeks. Hey, we're at the 130s. We're strapping in. It's a little bit logistically messy to get those things off the rack. I want you to start first work set 275 next week. More stable at the beat. Okay, cool. And so it's like, it's gradual. It's a handoff. It's not this like stark, like, today's the day. And you like jump out of a fucking Trojan horse with a new program. And you go like, oh, coach gave me, and you like, what are you doing? And so that's where I see a lot of people. And the thing is, when I see people, GPP zealots, when they look down their nose at people who periodize and have these specific goals in mind, they really make a straw man out of it. And they will use this very argument. And a lot of times it's this very argument that pushed them towards GPP and to begin with. It's this very practice of not understanding necessarily the phases themselves. Those are easy. But how do you transition in between phases? That's the real magic.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I completely agree. And the thing that it takes to be able to make these transitions in an appropriate way is you have to be in the fucking driver's seat. Like you have to have some awareness around what's going on. You have to have your fingers on the pulse of their training. And you should know, like, all right, we used 130s last week. We're not going to go 150s this week. We're going to progress to a barbell. Like it's these micro progressions week over week. And that's what training is about. Whether it's someone that's brand new, whether it's someone that's been doing this for a decade, like you have to have your fingers on the pulse and you have to understand, all right, this is something that's only progressible to this point. Once we get to this point, then there's a logical, meaningful transition into something that is going to continue this stimulus, but it's going to tip the scales. Like it's going to be a more externally stabilized means, or it's going to be something with a higher degree of coordination. So load's going to drop off, but perceived exertion is going to go up. And you have to understand kind of these nuances to whether it's loading parameters or specific exercise selection or exercise order. Like you said, all of these things make a fucking difference. They make a difference. And if you're actually paying attention to the way someone's progressing, and there's a thoughtful progression that's being built and you're monitoring their progress so that you know when something's slowing or if this is really taking off, like, all right, we're going to live in this for a bit because this is really working versus, all right, this is slowing. Let's switch it out for this. If it's someone that's been training for a while, maybe it's simply for the point of novelty. Maybe if it's someone that's new to training, maybe it's a new skill to them. So there is a skill learning curve versus someone that's been doing it for a while. And those are the things that really you live and die by when it comes to programming, because it's like you said, it's nothing should be this stark change, right? We don't need to just give them a whole new program. And that's something that, like, anyone who I've coached for a period of time, they notice that it's subtle changes. It's not, 4 weeks, then we're going to switch this to this. No, it's this progression is going to make you better at the next progression. And we're building a skill, we're building coordination, we're building capacity within these specific movements. And then when these movements change, we're going to capitalize on that quality that we built with that initial movement. And it's going to be something that you're going to now take that and you're going to channel it into something else that's either heavier or more complex or less stable, and you need to stabilize better. And that's programming in a nutshell. Is you need to understand how these things feed into one another. And also, another point is there's an end. There's an end to all of this, right? You can't just progress until infinity, right? Once you get to the end, then what you do is you test. You see there should be some sort of testing criteria with this goal, and then it's go back to the start, right? You have to start somewhere. This has to be a cyclical process for there to be continual progress. And by the time you get to the end of a progression, you're no longer as capable at doing the things in the beginning of that progression as you once were. So we have to circle back. We have to touch on these. We may not have to spend a ton of time there, but there's qualities in the beginning of that progression that we have lost going down that route, kind of building that pyramid up to a peak, that now we have to go back and we have to touch on these if we want to build that peak higher next time or the time after. And that's the thing that I've taken away from programming specifically for strength sports, but also like field sport athletes and people without these grand goals. It needs to be cyclical, right? You can only progress so far before you start to lose touch with the things that got you there. And that is when you circle back to that restitution phase, the GPP phase, and then you start to make it more specific as you go down. But the whole time, it's specific to that endpoint, that goal. Like, we have to have that endpoint in mind to know when we got there and to know when we have to cycle back and touch on things that are actually going to help push that endpoint further the next time.
And I think above all, what this does, this understanding, this ability to reverse engineer this sort of phasic potentiation of compounding, various adaptable training stimulus on top of each other in sort of this periodized fashion, is it's going to drive client retention like you wouldn't fucking believe. Like, if I come in and I talk to someone for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, and I start to really understand and can put into sort of our training language what it is they're trying to achieve, right? Like you said, like, set a goal for them and be realistic in managing expectations, because that's a cornerstone of what we do. And I can, with my experience, set out some rough chronological guidelines, but at the same time, tell them, like, hey, look, these phases can extend, they can shorten based off of your adaptability, which is going to kind of signify your, your skill within each phase. And as we progress through, this is what a year. I was just a Macintosh for a week. You want to learn a lot about periodization and programming, just open your laptop and pretend to work next to Mac every morning for a week. You're just going to be blown the fuck away with what that guy knows. And we had this exact conversation. So if you guys, if you guys don't listen to the Mac and Thayer's pod, absolutely go do that. Paint the edges with Thayer and Mac. And while you're at it, go listen to Schultz and Max. Just watch Jorge try and rein in Schultz from saying crazy shit on the internet. Strength and Context and Paint the Edges are by far my favorite two podcasts. But with listening to Mac, and he talks about this, and Mac has probably one of the, if not the best online coaching businesses that I've ever seen.
Yeah, he kills it.
Bar none. The scalable quality of service that guy's able to provide is unmatched. And we talked a lot about this very thing in the success of his business. It's like, I can sit with someone, he can sit with someone and tell them more or less what the year should look like, but also tell them where it may look different and why it's going to look different. And GPP just doesn't give you those tools. it doesn't give you those tools to have those conversations, to be able to layer in these progressions towards various compounding goals that are going to get people to their end result. Like, you just don't, it's a non sequitur. Like, you can't get there from here. Right. And that's where I think, if for no other reason, getting someone, I have a, I'm going to call him, I'm going to call him a mentor. He's never going to listen to this. And you kind of know the background of this conversation. I had someone that I look up to a lot say something very profound to me a few weeks ago, and I told you about it. And that was, sales solves all your problems. Sales solve all your problems. And it's like, you may not be the best coach you want to be, and that's fine. What is the best coach? The best coach is better than the coach you were last year. And
Yeah.
if you can keep people bought in and on track and working towards something that you can offer them, you have the opportunity to get better as a coach. Right. And this is just a great framework for your clients to get results, and for you to learn how to continue to get results. Right. Like, this catch and release that people play with their clients, it gives them this false sense of confidence that they know what they're doing. It's like, man, getting results in 6 weeks is easy. Getting results in 6 weeks after 10 years is hard.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Right. And that's what periodization, and that's what GPP is just not gonna give you those tools to be able to have the conversations, to be able to re-up with the same people over and over and over, years on end, because at year 6 you're still able to get results, because you know how to phase in and out movement, transition through these phases effectively, and work people towards their goals. Period.
That's it, man. I've worked with a lot of people of my career that, especially like a lot of my career was in a CrossFit gym. Their goal is to be good at GPP and to express that in a way where they can, like, there was a big thing back in the day of like deadlifting 500 pounds and running a sub 5-minute mile. And it's like, okay, these are great goals, but even that in itself is a very specific goal. And the best way to do that isn't necessarily to just do everything very generally. The best way to do that is have very specific intentions in your training, and to periodize it in a way in which you're peaking at a very specific time, right? Even if it is like a CrossFit athlete, or like High Rocks is a new one now. It's like, yeah, it might seem like this generalized like hybrid training. That's another word for it. Jeez. And if you're looking to express these things, it takes a high degree of specificity. Like, I worked with a lot of CrossFitters, and in CrossFit, like, there's this idea that the best way to get better at CrossFit is doing CrossFit really hard. Or like another way is like, I've worked with a lot of weightlifters. The best way to get better at snatching is snatching really heavy. And that's not necessarily true. The thing that allows you to CrossFit really hard or snatch really heavy is building every single quality that allows you to express that athleticism in CrossFit or in weightlifting, in a snatch. And that's not just doing the thing that you're doing really hard. Like, the best football players in the world don't get to be the best football players in the world by footballing really hard. It takes a lot of hours off of yeah, right. I'm using the same kind of context or syntax here to like kind of drive that point home. It's like, it's not just about doing the end result over and over again until you get better at the end result. You will get progress that way for a period of time. But then when you don't, that's when this stuff matters, right? That's when it has to be more specific and more specialized. So it takes a lot of different qualities to make someone good at CrossFit, good at snatching a barbell, good at playing football. Like, how many hours of footage do these guys watch? Like, how much time do they spend with coaches, position coaches, like looking at footwork, like doing footwork drills, like in the gym? It takes a lot of different things to become the end goal. And that's kind of the crux of this conversation, is you can't just generalize yourself to being generally good at everything. You have to have specific goals along the way, and you have to do a lot of things that don't look like the end goal to be good at the thing that you want to be good at the end of the day.
Boom. GPP is for lames. You heard it here first. Tell your friends. Subscribe on YouTube. RX Radio, on Spotify. Leave a comment. PSL1 waitlist up www.pre-script.com/PSL1.
That's it. Do that.